Welcome to Better Together, a podcast about the Southern Baptist Convention's cooperative program presented by SBC This Week. I'm Lawrence Smith. The issue of sexual abuse and response and prevention has been at the forefront of the SBC in recent years. And this year, the SBC's Executive Committee hired Jeff Dalrymple to lead its new Office for Sexual Abuse Response and Prevention. He joins us along with Emily Smith, the Abuse Prevention and Response Consultant from the Arkansas Baptist Convention. Good to see both of you.
Thank you.
Jeff, we've known each other for a long time. It's good to
sir.
see you in this role. Tell us about your work at the Executive Committee and how that came to be.
Sure. Well, I contacted Dr. Orge last year in my role as the Executive Director of the Evangelical Council for Abuse Prevention and offered to support his new appointment, his election as President of the Executive Committee. And he said, Jeff, I need a leader to lead in this effort. And long story short, I provided him a list of names. And by God's grace, here I am. I was not on the list, but we got to know each other, and I'm just honored to be here to serve Southern Baptist in this capacity. I started in January, and I've been working since January to get to this moment, to be here in Dallas armed with a number of initiatives to serve Southern Baptist in this area.
We'll talk about those in a second, but Emily, you do something similar on a state level. How did you come to be in your role?
Well, I served with Southern Baptist of Texas Convention for many years before coming back to my home state of Arkansas, and I've been working for the Arkansas Baptist State Convention for 7.5 years now. So in that amount of that 12-year period of time, I've been educating churches in Texas and in Arkansas on abuse prevention. And so a little over a year ago, our Arkansas Baptist State Convention decided to make it a permanent position on that executive team. And so they approached me and was like, hey, would you mind moving into this role? Because it was something that already came naturally and I was already doing and helping educate churches on this particular matter. So it's kind of how it came.
What kind of resources are you making available now, and kind of what's your long-term plan?
So coming into the annual meeting here in Dallas, we've been working on a new version of the Essentials curriculum. We hosted an event today, just came out of that a little bit ago, Safeguarding the Next Generation. We're going to relaunch the Abuse Helpline to be able to serve Southern Baptist, not just the function of receiving information and disseminating that information, but also providing Christian counseling referrals to survivors that need care, mental health type situations, but then also providing coaching and support for ministry leaders who are on the front lines of navigating abuse situations. One of the highlights of my role is actually working with the state conventions. So as I started reaching out to the 42 Baptist state and regional conventions, Emily's name popped up a few times and said, you've got to talk to Emily Smith in Arkansas. They're really leading the way in this area. And so the highlight of my work so far is actually getting to know the state conventions, learning about their work in this area, because the topic of sexual abuse is really at a state level from a legal perspective, right? Mandatory reporter laws and other laws are all at that state level. And so that's really where the state conventions are leading the way on a really, really important on this issue.
Right.
And we talk about that. What role do the state conventions play? I mean, Jeff's office can produce all kinds of materials.
Right.
But they got to be used.
Exactly.
So what role does the state convention play in doing this?
Right. Well, and at the state convention level, we're there to be a help and a resource to our churches. We can't necessarily say, hey, do this, but we can provide and say, hey, these are some good practices to put in place and be there to be that help to them as they navigate when we're talking about safeguarding minors in different aspects, or what do we do when an incident happens in our congregations, in our church setting, and everything along that line. And so that's what we are, is to be there to help educate, to help equip, and help them to understand, hey, here's the risk at hand, and here are things that we can do to minimize that risk and come alongside them. And so that's one thing we're continuing to do. And what are the resources we have even available within our state? How can we connect you even on the aftercare aspect and connect them with professional counseling in different aspects, and for them to know what's available to them.
So why is it important for states to cooperate if we're going to try to make churches as safe as possible.
Well, we can't make them do anything. So we both have to
Yeah.
deploy relational capital, which again, the relationships that the state conventions have is really, really important. Education, awareness, but also connecting the dots and making it easier to put measures in place to protect the next generation. You asked the question, why is this important? I believe it's important because we as Christians, as Christ followers, as Southern Baptists, believe that every person is made in the image of God, worthy of dignity, protection, and respect. And so we really see this as a great commission issue. When I talk to survivors of abuse in a ministry context, I'm heartbroken because many of them, maybe most of them, aren't following Christ. They don't want anything to do with God. They'll never set foot in the church again. So for that reason, I really believe that abuse prevention response is a great commission issue.
Yeah. And so we just came off of VBS week at our church where we saw 16 kids come to know Christ. And it's like, that's not going to happen if we're not putting those safeguards in place and providing that safe environment so kids can hear the gospel and respond to that.
So what are some of the challenges that you both see in front of us as we continue this effort of, prevention and also caring for those who may have been victimized?
And so, yeah. And so I think one of our biggest things is that I know we hear a lot of times, hey, how can we rid this? How can we not have this anymore within our churches? And we have to come to the realization that we're never going to be 100% risk-free. We're never going to be 100% abuse-free. But we can put measures in place. We can do things to help minimize that risk. So we do give that opportunity for the next generation to grow spiritually and to hear the gospel. And so, yeah, and I look at it from this perspective. If we can prevent just one child from this happening to them, or if we can help one survivor navigate back to God's best for their life, then it's a success in our book. And so, but I think our biggest challenge is really churches understanding the risk that we face. This is not something that's going to go away. And so we have to be proactive now with that. So
Church Law and Tax says the number one reason why a church ends up in court is the sexual abuse of a minor. And honestly, we've dedicated our lives to changing that statistic. And so the outline I would encourage pastors to think about is screening, training, appropriate supervision levels based on age and legal requirements, and then also having a response plan in place. And so you asked about caring for survivors. I would hope before there's ever an incident or allegation of abuse that a church would have a response plan in place. Whether we're talking about internal abuse or external abuse, they're prepared. They know exactly what to report. They know the mandatory reporter laws in their state. They know who to call. They know who their Christian counselor is going to be. You mentioned that. What the insurance coverage may include to support them. They know who their legal counsel is. So those things are much better to figure out before something happens than when you're in the middle of a crisis.
Right.
I can see pastors out there listening to this who just may be overwhelmed by all this. So what is the first step a pastor, a church can take to address this issue?
Yeah. I think the first thing is really understanding the risk that we're faced with, kind of understanding and realizing that safeguards have to be put in place. We can't ignore the issue. We've got to do something. And so, not to quote the essentials, because I'm sure you would cover that aspect, but I think our biggest things, those first kind of bites, those first kind of steps that churches need to take is that education aspect. We have to train those leaders, train everyone that is involved with minors. And you got to start at the top and work your way down. I mean, I get calls sometimes. It's like, hey, do we need to run this on our pastor? Yes, they're going to have access to your minors. And so all your staff, anyone that is going to be involved in working with minors, you need to train and do that abuse awareness training and all those key aspects. And then I know another thing that we have to screen. And so many times I know churches are lacking volunteers. And that's one of the calls that I get a lot of, like, well, how do we have enough volunteers? How do we build our volunteer base in different aspects? And it's like, but you still got to screen. You want to make sure you're putting the right people in place. And you don't want someone walking in and today, hey, I want to work with preteen boys. By all means, we're going to put you in there today without any type of screening process. No, we're going to screen you for that. I have a preteen boy. Who wants to work with preteen boys? Come on. I love him dearly. And so, but helping, we want to put the right people in place, not just someone that's breathing to fill our 2 adult role. That's not the case. So that screening process, but also putting those protections in place. What are those policies that we need to include to make sure that we're protecting the minors in our care and protecting the leaders that are serving them?
So if sexual abuse is reported, what's the church supposed to do long term and short term?
Well, immediately they should report it.
Yeah.
And we believe this is a Romans 13 issue. God instituted the purpose of government, right? Romans 13, to protect people. That's the main purpose of government, among other things. And so when you see mandatory reporting laws, it's essentially the state, the government saying, that's not for you to figure out. That has got to be adjudicated and investigated by the authorities. And so the first step would be to report that. So I would challenge our listeners, our viewers, to go and know the mandatory reporting laws for the state where they operate. And that may, when I say operate, that may not just be where they're located, but maybe where they go to camp and they do some mission trips and these different things. So be aware of those laws because they all differ state by state. And then, I think as to the question about where do you start, I think thinking of abuse prevention as a new ministry is really important. Capacity building is what we talk about in management theory. And essentially having someone take responsibility for this role. In other words, pastors are so busy. To add another element of responsibility onto a busy pastor is really unreasonable. So pastors need to be aware of it. They need to support it. And then they need to delegate it to competent individuals to take that and to move it forward. Does it have to be a full-time staff member? No. It could be part-time. It could be a volunteer. There's many, many smaller churches that have a volunteer child safety coordinator who takes responsibility for that and carries it forward.
So where do pastors, churches get access to the resources that are out there?
Well, there's a number of resources.
Yes.
So first of all, the state conventions all have websites dedicated to abuse prevention and response. You can find that, each of those states, by going to sbcabuseprevention.com. All of the state resources are listed there. The essentials curriculum is listed there. Vendors that are providing background checks, screening, insurance, counseling, all of those resources are being listed there on that website. Definitions of sexual abuse, instructions for reporting, including the SBC hotline and helpline are all listed on that website.
Once again, this is all illustrative of why cooperation is important.
Right. Yeah. I think we've come a long way from where we were even 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so, yeah, we're so much better together, working together for that, what resources are available now, and continue to build upon that. And so for churches to say we don't know where to start, there's resources available to you to help you in that process.
The cooperative program makes it possible for Emily and I and dozens of other state leaders to do this kind of work, to come along, because it's really a specialization. I mean, you said you've been doing this for 12 years.
Yes.
I mean, you just don't flip a switch and know how to handle abuse allegations. So there's a lot of expertise with someone like Emily that is all made possible because of the cooperative program. It's really quite popular, or powerful rather.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
God bless the work you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time as we explore the many reasons why Southern Baptists are truly better together through the cooperative program.